I was born and raised here in Mathare. And being born and raised in Mathare definitely had its own challenges and hardship. And we believe there's no one who was actually going to make it better other than us. So by the grace of God, He gave us strides to go out there and see how things are supposed to be done to create change in this community. And that's why we are back here to actually give back to the very community that raised us up. My name is Kelvin Otieno, and this is my story.
Hopelessness, societal neglect and poverty are some of the situations lurking in our Kenyan slums. Lack of empowerment and unemployment being their everyday sad reality, a big percentage of the fast-growing population in the slums is forced to adapt to the system, a system of crime and dangerous societal vices to survive through poverty and lack. At the heart of Mathare slums, we meet Kelvin Otieno, a last-born in a family of 4, who has beaten the odds to rise above the standards of being defined by the woes of his past.
I take it as a blessing in disguise because being born here has actually opened my eyes in so many ways. It has opened my eyes on how to help better. It has opened my heart to feel the need of others because growing up here, we can say lack was a second term that we could actually use as we grew up in Mathare. Like lacking food was nothing really, going hungry was nothing really major. And I think it is still the case today in most families. Like I understand, me not being a thug is not by miracle. Me not being killed because many of my friends were killed by the nozzle of a gun from the time. I can't count many friends that we grew up with in the native Mathare that are still, many of them alive, because many were killed. Well, the father figure in the slum regions is not mostly there. It's not actually mostly felt. So today, if you look at Mathare, and I really applaud many women in Mathare, these mothers are extremely working hard. Actually, were it not for my mother, I think life would have taken a different twist and turn, if you really asked me.
They say it's not how you begin, but how you finish that matters. Though life threw many obstacles at Kelvin, he stuck his eye on the prize, and by the grace of God, he managed to enroll to school.
We went through what today we call up-bet school, whereby it doesn't really follow every structure, but it offers education that the government requires. The houses you see around, those were exactly what our classes looked like. A tin roof, and not just a tin roof, it was a corrugated tin roof house, 10 by 10, and many kids right inside. Those tin roof classes simply meant that there was a created space, a very small space, many kids right inside. It was still a challenge in this school, so you can imagine, I can't remember really the figure we used to pay for school fees, but it was still an uphill task, especially for us who are 4 in our house, 4 brothers, a mother who needed to feed all this and still pay school fees. The question is, when I have, let's say for instance in Mathare, a woman or a mother who goes to wash clothes in Isili makes slightly less than $1, or if it makes more than $1, then it's maybe $1 a day. Now, the question is, what does a woman with 4 children living with $1 or less than $1 or slightly less than $1 a day survive then with 4 children? Do you opt to pay for school fees first, or do you find food to feed your children? Then it becomes obvious. My children must eat first according to what I saw from my mother. It was us eating first, school can come later. And it's not different from many cases we see today. Many women will prefer, let's have our children eat first before we look at the school fees issue.
At the brink of his despair, God sent help their way through an angel.
And the truth is, I've never met this guy again since. That my mother was crying outside the compound of our school, then a guy saw her cry. Then when the guy saw her cry, I think the guy asked. Then my mother told the guy that her problem is that our very child that is supposed to do KCP for the very first time is going to miss it simply because she doesn't have 800. So the guy entered the school compound. He comes like, we want to pay your KCP school fees, but remember this, as I pay for it, don't look for me to help me, but do it for the rest in case God helps you in future. Now, after doing the KCPE, I passed very well. Received letters from different schools. One was, I remember Bungoma, the Mathare boys, somewhere in Mathare. I'd never even bothered to go see where it was. There was another one from Bale Boys High School, there's another one from Vihiga Boys High School, and I think there's some other schools. Now you see the problem again is coming, because the question needs to be asked here. My mother could not afford 800 shillings to take me to school. I mean, to pay for my KCPE. How was she going to afford, I mean, exorbitant amount of money to pay for my high school? Now, I will tell you this. When I got the first letter from Bungoma Boys High School, Mathare Boys High School, this is what it read, and I was reading it for the first time, what was required of me to join the school. Now, the requirement alone was more than what my mother could even imagine to afford, because I was being told I needed butter shoes. We had never heard of butter shoe by that time, so so my mother was a bit confused at that time, like what is butter shoe and all that. We needed a blanket sheet and all that. You know what we need to go to school. My mother could not afford, because even in our house, we could not even afford them. I mean, I don't sleep in a good place. We used to sleep on a floor. Nearly every house in Mathare is arranged in this form. So during the day, there's a table, there's everything. So when people want to eat, they will gather together over such and eat. Mostly dinner, because I don't think many families take lunch in Mathare. Then during the night, depending on how many you are in a family, so some will occupy here. Then the remaining ones will have to get this off and then lay the mattress down. So that's where they will sleep and then wake up at whichever time. Now the danger is, as you can see, you can imagine when it begins raining, so all this gathers water. Yeah, all this gathers water. And sometimes I think it's even using the sacks to make the ceiling. But you can imagine a house without a ceiling. Like ours didn't have a ceiling. So it definitely means it rains and then the leaks drops back. So this house alone comprises of everything. Now tell me, from sleeping on the floor to someone telling you to buy mattress, proper sheet, blanket, proper shoes and all that. Yeah, I mean, it's beyond imagination. Fortunately, I got a sponsor to take me to high school. And that's how I also went through high school. Now, the school I finally chose was Bale High School, because that's what we could manage with the amount of money we had. Going from one class to another was nearly next to a miracle. So then I had some fear, which was actually, in human terms, we could say it was warranted for. Because I'm in high school, and you see, you try to ask yourself, you're not stupid, you're very bright, but the question is, what if I pass? You get, because I have seen problems, and every time you see this problem, the first person you see firsthand is my mother, because she could always be there. And I know my mother really wanted me to make it, because every time this disappointment could come, you could see tears. So at one point I remember in Form 2, around Form 2, Form 3, I was like, yes, we know we are bright, but we are going to fail intentionally, just not to bother people.
The wise men said that we are the creative force of our life, and everything in it is a reflection of a choice we have made. Some we regret, some we are proud of, and some will haunt us forever. Kelvin chose to go against his predicaments and do his best. Luckily, his efforts bore fruits, but going to the next phase of academics was another hurdle.
Immediately after Form 4, I knew I wanted to go to Daystar. So what I started doing is open an account and came back to the same institution where I was in primary to teach. And through that, I used to get some little amount of money and keep. So by the time I discovered, I had close to 50,000 shillings. I took that to Daystar. And when I took it, they were asking, but now you see, all you need is this amount of money. Because I remember it was 120, but I had 50 to 60,000 if I can remember. And that's all I had. And I was like, just take this. I will try find the rest. The truth is, I did exam for that semester without that money. But now you see, the question is, there was no way I was going to be even in class or even allowed to register for the next semester without this money. So I went and took some time home, trying to gather again just to go back to school. So I took nearly 7 years to complete Daystar because of a fee problem and issues. But now, in it, I also learned a lot because one, I rose to be what we call the executive members of Daystar Christian Fellowship, and I was the missions coordinator from there. Then later on, I went for the political ambition that I had, so I also went ahead for the first time. I think they looked at it as a bit different, coming from Mathare to being a student leader under the docket of a Secretary General, which I also served and tried to solve what I saw as a problem.
Wilkista is now a senior citizen, and she literally saw Kelvin grow from a toddler.
Kelvin walikuwa naishi hapa chini na mama yake. Mbeleni hata tulikuwa tunachota maji chini ya barowe huko. Tunakuwa na mama yake. Sasa anawacha Kebo hapa kwangu karibu, anaenda kutafuta ndizi ause ili apate bila ataweza kusomesha Kebo. Mimi si kuona ubaya yake, hata ya leo bado ona ubaya yake. Alikuwa kijana mzuri hapa kwetu. Hata tu kujua kama atapata hizi nini iko nayo sahihi, madaraka ila amepata, sababu mtu alikuwa anatambaa, amesaliwa tu kama naona. Nasikia raha kwa nini yangu, kwa roho yangu, sababu hakuna umbaya alikuwa nayo, hakupiga mtoto ya mtu, hakufanya ucharati na wasichana. Kwa hivyo alikuwa anaamini nini shule yake.
Born and raised in Mathare, Adawo had his fair share of challenges and is one of the many beneficiaries of Kelvin's kindness.
We used to be living with him in one house, so he has been like a brother to me. Maybe I can say my elder brother. So that's how we knew each other. We were neighbors. So despite that we were neighbors, we used to be playing together, moving around together. We were also we were going with him in the same school. So it happened that maybe most of the time we found ourselves maybe with each other.
Mama yake hakukuwa nayo, lakini amejaribu mpaka akasoma mpaka university.
Despite the many challenges Kelvin faced while growing up, Stigma was not an exception.
Now in my class, I attempted to sit next to a very rich a student. I mean, he came from a very rich family. It was a boys' school, so he came from a very rich family. He liked me a lot, and we were very good friends. But now you see, the point of you saying you come from Mathare, because Mathare had a name, it still has a name anywhere. You go to Mathare, one, it's a slum. Mathare and Kibera, there's a constant name they have, so it's a slum. Now, by the time you mention you come from Mathare, everyone begins to look at you differently. Like they begin even asking you very, I will call them funny questions. Like, how do you survive in Mathare? I'm like, well, there's oxygen. It's not locked in Mathare. One will even be honest with you and tell you, Kelvin, how come you've never seen you still? Like, not everyone in Mathare stills.
The Bible says in the book of Proverbs chapter 22 verse 6, to train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Kelvin held on to his mother's teachings and that of his church that helped him skid through the murky waters of life.
And also being one who is teachable, because that's what I think it's one character I adopted from the time I was very young, the teachable spirit. Teachable spirit has helped me in this way, that whenever these people speak and talk to me, I listened. When they tell me, Kelvin, you're not supposed to do, I listened and took instructions very serious, which I still do to date. I take instructions very serious, so long as it's helpful instruction. But now, another thing is Christ was in it. Yes, I was in Mathare, my Christian aspect of being a Christian from the time I was young, introduced subconsciously to the point I now came to probably confess by my very mouth that Christ is Lord and all that. It's because I'd seen what Christ has done and had done to me since to now, and connecting with the very right people.
Kelvin is one among the many success stories from various slums within our cities, and what makes him stand out is his love and compassion towards his community. In his own small ways, he is touching lives with the aim of rewriting the story of Mathare. His story continues after the break.
FamilyNews.Today provides an escape room from the clutter through our podcasts, from church escapades
get disappointed with God, and I think it's a misplaced anger,
to daily devotionals,
The beauty about God's love is that it was focused on all that God had.
to financial and life tips, bedtime stories for your child. All these and much more available just for you on FamilyNews.Today on Spotify, Google Podcast, and SoundCloud. Insights at your fingertips.
They say charity begins at home, and after Kelvin's triumphant survival at Mathare slums, he decided to give back to the community where he grew up.
I was tired of being angry. So mine was, can we find something different? Can we come back and do it? Because the truth is, the calibration of the life that actually we were taught to go through in Mathare is a system that waits death, if you understand me. Like, a child in Mathare will be born today, but they know they're going to suffer for a while before finally they die. You get the sense? Now you see, I looked at this deeply, and I asked myself, why did God give me all these opportunities? Then I think one reason becomes a prime, that it was for me to go back. You remember the Nehemiah story? Like, Nehemiah was in King's Palace. But you see, the comfort of being there is not enough. Because once you're there, you also ask yourself, just as Nehemiah, my people back home are hurting. And I love children. Now, loving children simply is, for me, what it has done to me is like, it makes me ask questions. What did I lack as a child that I want to see a child get? One, it was food. Today, if you come to this center, children eat from Monday to Monday, including giving them fruits. So on Monday and Friday, we give them fruits, banana or even oranges. Secondly, when I was growing up in Mathare, there are things that were looked at a privilege, like eating chapati. That's what we do here every week. Like, children eat chapati and green grams and fruits every Friday here. Why am I doing that? Because the problem we have had for a long time. But you see, I mean, as a Christian, I believe things should change and become better. I'm doing them because if I can get one child who will come back and do the same. Because you see, how do you tell a child to give back if they never saw anyone who grew up here giving back? So it's a practical example for them. Like, if Kelvin can come and do us this beautiful school, if Kelvin can come and do us this beautiful daycare, if Kelvin can feed us, if Kelvin, through the help of Christ, of course, can do all this, then I also want to grow.
His academic journey taught him a great lesson, and he wouldn't want anyone else to go through the same challenges he faced.
2007 is when I was just finishing high school, but I had a blueprint already. Like, what I wanted, I'm coming out of high school. So what do I want to see in my society as I live? Yes, going to university is important, but what do I want to see? So this process has begun gradually after Form 4. So I went, gained some experience in teaching and saw how children are supposed to be treated and all that, blah, blah, blah. But in 2012, we picked so well. So that's when I started doing everything. Like, that's when I could have an office and tell this is where we are. That's where we could have a space and tell you this is where you find us. But in 2007, after high school and all through, it was just a blueprint writing and what I need to do. And also doing them on a small scale basis. Like, I start by feeding the old in Mathare. That's how I started. Feeding the old, then the children. Where I saw the lack and the needed, that's where we gave. This is the new daycare center we're actually making. So it is divided into many sessions. So the first session is the hall. This is the main hall. Because for the first time, I also feel like we have neglected the children, especially on spiritual basis, in that we only tell them go for Sunday school. You never know what they're taught in those Sunday schools and all that. So for the first time, we're coming up with what I call Kids Chapel in Mathare. So this is where they will have a proper foundation. You know how you take your children to good schools to get proper foundation. So I think this is going to be that place for the children, especially on the foundation, the rooting of Christ. So that's why it's called Kids Chapel down here. That means they will do their services here, worship, sing, and they will even be taught to encourage one another. So this is going to be theirs, a whole children affair. Apart from that, we also use it to give stories every evening. So they sit down, we constantly sit on the floor. So whoever gives or narrates the story sits right ahead or rather in front of others. So I had started giving them story, but now we change. If I give the story today, a child amongst them goes revise another story to tell us. Like yesterday, I'm the one who told the story. Today, we're going to have a child tell them the story. The progress on the other side of the kids has also been amazing. We have them here, like the dream is actually true as we are speaking today. This is the space that we have actually offered for the kids to sleep in, and as you can see, well, some of them are still sleeping, but many of them are down there. But it's a space that is actually supposed to be harboring the kids, where they can actually sleep and have rest. And it's actually what we call, not really the bedroom, but it's actually the room that they can actually be sleeping. These parents are not lazy. That's one thing that we must actually be in a position to first understand. All they do is really work hard, but there's little that they can share in all those facets. Like for instance, when we had these children get burnt into these houses, was it because the parents were just lazy and seated somewhere? No. The only problem is what they get from what they do cannot be balanced to feed the kid, find a proper place for this child to probably keep them. No wonder they locked them in the house, and no wonder they were getting burnt in those houses. So economically, it has been a relief to those who have the children here. One, because they're now sure that my child is in a safe space, well-fed, and even they are bathed from this place. We have shower down there. So this is our kids' library, and our kids' library is intended to nurture the kids, just as I told you, in the many aspects. So this is the educational region, whereby, for instance, if a child is tired of sleeping from the other side, we don't just want them to sleep again. They will come here. We have kids-friendly, rather child-friendly books, as you can see, related from the Bible stories. As you can see, we have a book here, like the Bible. We also have the Gospel Project, as you can see, and many others that the kids can actually come in and develop various skills in terms of reading, in terms of probably even the audiovisual that we'll also be in a position to have here. So in other words, they can easily go to Isili now, leave the children in a safe space, come back in the evening minus any worry.
I was so happy when Kelvin appointed me to be the one to take care of the children in the daycare. So the facility has helped me a lot. We are being paid well, even we are eating even here.
Community around, they have also started borrowing the hall for different other, and we don't say no to them. Like, I mean, it's all theirs. Yes, we started for the children, but they're the very parents that brought us these children. So they usually request the hall for meetings.
Daycare itanisaidia kama bado miaka yake bado ya shule bado, kuliko kukaa kwa mlango huko najua watafundishwa hata kuchora kukalakala vitu kuliko kukaa kwa nyumba.
Kelvin's journey of giving back has had its ups and downs, but the highlights stand out.
My achievement, which I had asked for God directly and has been answered more than I imagined, is to find a place where children can come, settle and eat comfortably. You get? That is it. Another achievement that I think we have actually made is during Corona time. And I'm so proud of the community. During Corona time, we are nearly dying. And you remember there was no food, no nothing. But God in his own ways connected us to HCN Church in the US that actually did us a lot. I mean, for the whole 2 years, this community used to eat on daily basis. This was a gathering point. So they used to come take food from here, like maize flour, rice, green stuffs and dry stuff from here and go back home with them for 2 years.
I remember him after finishing Form 4. He was like a parent to me because my father was a drunkard. So Kelvin could, I learned in a day school. So Kelvin could come to the school as my own parent. So I remember after finishing Form 4, he's the same individual who looked for me, who looked for friends who helped me go to university. So he's one of the person that I'm looking up to be raising other people, to be like, not even being like us, but to be better than us, and to come back and do great things within the society. So he's a person who has a heart for the community. He has helped women, even if he has not helped them 100%, but there's something he's doing to their life, that one is changing them or moving their situation from worse to good. I've seen youths whom he has helped apart from me, that have also maybe developed or have moved from one stage to another.
Kelvin's silver lining we see now didn't come on a silver platter.
The first challenge you meet first is lack of resources sometimes. I will not say we lack resources. They're not just enough, because what we have, we try to put it to the right use. Food, construction and all that. But even apart from that, the other challenge maybe could be the challenge of bringing the community from where they were to showing them new light. You know, it becomes a bit of a challenge. Telling them that that's not how life is supposed to be lived. It is supposed to be lived this way.
Through baby steps, Kelvin is slowly transforming Mathare into a habitable environment, and the buds in the flowers are slowly blossoming, unveiling the hidden treasures, thus bringing a glimmer of hope amongst the youth and the younger generation.
I think one day at a time, if you ask me. But the plan for the next 5 years is to see children from Mathare who will also go conquer out there. These youths who we are working with, you can see some of them around because I believe in them that much. That's why I need to work with them through the whole processes. So in the next 5 years, we want to see full institutions blowing up. We want to see lives in Mathare brought back to Christ. We want to see the young in the society believing in themselves and not looking at themselves from the other dimension they've constantly been reminded of: thieves, if you are a lady, prostitute, so such vices, hard drug users and all that. That's one thing we must begin to change. And I believe in the next 5 years, that whole history will now begin to change.
As a youth living in the slum, life can dig you a raw deal, pushing you to the wall where giving up can be the only option. But there is hope.
I constantly tell them again, refuse to be told who you are not. Because these people only tell us what we are not. You've heard of a certain trend that is commonly used: youths are the leaders of tomorrow. Who said we can't be today? Because the Lord has shocked me. These people wanted me to do this thing 50 years. It is happening today. So what does that mean? That you as a youth, you have something you can do. The only thing you need to do is to entrust God with it and see how He leads it. I would also like to advise the youth outside there that let us find mentors. I know in Mathare it's a new term when you're told find a mentor, because sometimes we feel like we can do this life by ourselves. We feel like we have given hope enough that we don't need anyone to give us any positive note on it. So I think find mentors, find people who can walk with you, because actually that's really what helped me too. When I found people who had seen it all and are now trying to walk with me, it was easier than trying to figure it out by myself. I wish everyone learned that they can actually begin to change the environment, and everyone has the potential and ability to change it.
We all can be the change we want to see in our society, and together we will heal the world, making it a better place for you and for me and for the generations to come. We hope Kelvin's story has inspired you. If you have a story you would like to share with us, kindly text us on 20316 or WhatsApp on 0786 316 316 or email us on thisismystory@familymedia.tv and we will get back to you.